it's true. We're here at the Kutztown. I just saw there's a horse and buggy. People are always curious about the Amish. I know a lot about the Amish because I grew up here in PA in Lancaster County. Plus, my mom was a RN nurse. She also did. She was also a travel nurse. So, like, if an Amish farm called, and said, "Hey, we need a nurse," and they couldn't get to the hospital, she would go to their house, bandage them up, whatever. So, with horse and buggies, as you can know, tragically, there's a lot of horse and buggy accidents with cars and everything, and unfortunately, some don't make it out alive. As you can see, here's why. So, and I'm not making this up because you can find it too. So, if you lift the back of that thing, you'll actually see the children and stuff having their heads out in the back of the wagon, acting like it's a fun ride and stuff. There are no seatbelts at all. So that's why it's easy for the children to either jump out, which hopefully they don't do that, or just to have their heads in the back. And we're talking about from like children, probably from about ages from a year old to probably about, 12 or so until they get to know better to sit down and all. So then we're going to take a look at the buggy and you'll see what I'm talking about because I'm not making this up. Also too, in the buggy, they also, when they leave for the hospital, sometimes they go to actual hospitals like we would, the people that are not an Amish community, like how we're not an Amish community and we go to the hospital to deliver our babies and stuff. Well, here, when they go home from the hospital, they ask, do you have a driver? Because they must leave in the hospital with a baby car seat. Amish do not use baby car seats. They don't have to. They use a box. And I will show you where they set them in a box. How this works is the driver sits on this side because obviously there's the pedal, and then the box literally will be on the floor on the seat beside the driver, and you can see them when they have, and sometimes they open up that door, so you'll see if the door's not open, you'll actually see a toddler or an infant in the box on the floor. And there's no air conditioning, no nothing. Whatever the
it's got an ashtray though.
Whatever temperature it is, that's what temperature it's going to be. So you can see why horse and buggies break easily because they're made out of wood. So when you get into a car crash, that's why they don't make it out alive, because they just have wood and metal, and when you see accidents, you see it all smashed up in the buggy. It's sad, Even the wheels come off, depending on how a wreck is. So there's your history of the horse and buggy. But it's true.
up there where you got the whole, well, no, not this one, but
If you want to go lap, walk around. Yeah, I was top for a while.
I'm just good at Molly. I'm good at walking here. But it's true.
This festival was founded in 1950 by three academics. They were Alfred Shoemaker, Don Yoder, and William Fry. They were teaching at Franklin and Marshall College, which is in Lancaster. And they wanted to do a holistic presentation of life. And they were doing something really revolutionary. Their idea was to bring people from the neighboring towns and villages and have them actually display their life in front of outsiders. And usually a folk festival was about singing. Usually there was a stage and a group of people would get up and sing. Shoemaker and Yoder felt a folk festival should be more than just singing, it should also be people's entire lives. The work they did, the food they cooked and ate, how they harvested, their religious beliefs, much more than just singing. And the idea was not to have somebody who was an academic like them do the presentation, but have the people who lived in the area themselves do it. And this became, I'm pretty sure, the first what we would call folk life festival. There had been folk festivals before, but this was the first effort to really look at people's lives in a kind of holistic, full kind of way. And so this how the festival started. One of the things, as the festival evolved, several things happened, but originally the festival really took off. It became something that was really popular. I'll tell you, people in this area did not think it was going to go anywhere. They said, who's going to care about our lives? Who's going to want to eat our food? Who's going to want to do what it is we're doing? But it really caught on. It really exploded over time. And I don't know, it was something that really caught on. One thing to keep in mind, the festival has changed. It's been here for 72 years. In 1950, when Shoemaker and Yoder started it, you could have somebody in this area, 75 years old, and they would have been brought up in a purely pre-mechanical agricultural environment. They would have done their own harvesting. There would have been no gasoline-powered plows or threshing machines or anything like that. Probably they spoke Pennsylvania Dutch as the first language. They probably did not start speaking English until they started school. They would have been making their own food on the grounds. They really would have been immersed in a pre-industrial agricultural style. That would have been somebody born in 1875, the first year of the festival. And they would demonstrate the life that they knew today, at that time, or the life that they knew from their childhood. A 75-year-old today is really a different story. Born 1947, most likely that person does not speak Pennsylvania Dutch. Most likely, if they heard Pennsylvania Dutch, it was their grandparents speaking when they didn't want him or her to understand what was being said. Most likely, if they grew up on a farm, for sure, all the machinery would have been mechanized. So it would have been gasoline-powered machinery. Most likely they weren't brought up on a farm. Most likely they didn't want to stay on the farm. They wanted to get off the farm. And so it's a very different kind of group. If they were on the farm, they certainly were using gasoline-powered machinery. They would have had a telephone. They would have had electricity. They would have, and eventually the internet. They would have been immersed in a modern economic culture. They would have been involved in commercial farming, most likely as over the course of their lives they shifted more and more to a single crop. Usually what's grown here is wheat, alfalfa, rye, or corn, especially corn. And the corn is used as feed for cows. It's really not so good. I don't think it tastes all that good for humans. It's used as feed for cows, and then there's a dairy industry. And their great-great-grandfather in the 1870s and 80s would have pretty much lived off the farm in terms of food. They would not be living off the farm. They'd be going to Giant to buy their meals, and then they would have had a garden perhaps, but they would have sold most of their food and then use the money to buy food. So it's a very different person who's at this festival than there would have been 72 years ago. And as the festival has evolved in that sense. Some criticism of the festival that it does not show what are those pre-industrial farming techniques, that pre-industrial life. There are some exhibits that do that, but there are also a lot of other exhibits as well. But keep in mind, the material that we have is not the same that we had in 1950, and this festival has evolved along those lines. One thing that I like to talk about is, I talked about this earlier, if anybody was here earlier, languages and cultures to survive must evolve. And so sometimes people talk about, for instance, Latin as a dead language. Well, Latin isn't really a dead language. It's Spanish, French, Italian. It's something that changed. What's dead is when something freezes. And the argument is that could be true of a language, it can be true of a culture. When people change, when they are creative, they actually keep something alive. And one of the things you'll hear down at this festival is we're finding ways to keep Pennsylvania Dutch culture alive. One of the things is, if you were here earlier, there was a liars contest. That really does not go back to Germany. It actually doesn't even go back to the 1800s. That seems to be something, well, took off in English actually in the late 1800s. Americans liked telling tall tales, stories, things like that. And then the Pennsylvania Dutch picked up on that. And then that became actually one of the main expressive forms for the language. There's a group of groundhog lodges. They meet annually. They started in the 1930s. And you can only speak Pennsylvania Dutch. Again, that's not something that goes back to Germany. In fact, a lot of the symbolism in the groundhog lodges is derived from Masonic lodges, which would be American. They took that American experience, combined it with Pennsylvania Dutch culture. They speak the language, Pennsylvania Dutch. There, in fact, if you speak any English, you get fined. And they've taken a lot of kind of American memes and symbols and joking humor, but they've combined it into Pennsylvania Dutch. Now, you could say, well, Pennsylvania, these groundhog lodges, that's not something that goes back to Germany. It's not even something that goes before about 1930, and yet that's become part of their cultural expression. So one of the things as you look around here, what you'll see is a lot of craftspeople who are taking traditional Pennsylvania German arts and then modernizing them, changing them to fit with the times. And one of the things is, I like to talk about the hex signs as an example of this, the barn stars. If you see that word shirk, that is a classic barn star that you will find on barns in this area. Tourists started coming up in this area in the 1930s and 40s. By the 1950s, there was a big industry. And what happened is the hex signs started evolving, if you want, to be tourists. Tourists generally like a lot of frills, a lot of little things along the side. They don't like the more simpler, what would have been traditional things. And a lot of the hex sign makers evolved with that.
Wow, everything is like Pennsylvania Dutch here. They like have their stands and all.
How about some lemonade? shearing later.
Yeah, the sheep shearing will be in about 8 minutes.
Worldwide, we need a lot more shears than what we have now. We're really desperate, just like any other trade that we have. So, to introduce ourselves, my name is Randy Stitzel. I'm the 3rd generation shearing in my family. And next year, I'll actually be shearing my 50th year as a shear. So, I didn't think I'd be shearing that long, but just the way things have happened over the years. My father taught me. He sheared for 37 years as a shear. And my great-grandfather, he started all. He started shearing in 1896 in this area. He was a dairy farmer, and he was also a veterinarian. And when sheep got introduced, he had a few himself. He said he was doing everything else for the local farmers, animal-wise. He decided he was going to start shearing. And this is actually one of his hand pieces that he was shearing with. We're going to show you some hand shearing, part of the demonstration. I don't know exactly how long he sheared by hand, but I would say 3/4 of his career he sheared by hand. And he sheared for 43 years. He sheared. My grandfather never got into it. He helped with other functions, wrapping up wool and stuff like that, but he never sheared. He as a young man, he fell off the family hayloft in the barn, and his back landed on a scale. He kind of broke his back, and I guess where they way they used it back then, he just couldn't take the pressure and the bending over like we do, so we can do our job. So he never sheared. A good friend of the family was taught. He sheared for many. He sheared probably 40 years, I would say. He was a friend of the family. He helped on the family farm. His name was Luther Sugar. And my dad actually learned under him. He went along with him to when he was learning to shear when he was a young man. The gentleman who's going to be doing the shearing is the oldest of my 3 boys. This is Chris. He's with me 30 years as a shearer. When he's not doing this, he is also a mason by trade, and he also in the fall, he also coaches one of the top cross-country teams in the state at Northwestern Lehigh. And he's doing that for 20-some years, over 20 years. So my middle son was a shearer also. I thought we had an extra hand there, and it's something he always wanted to do. We seen it coming. When he was a young boy, he was always fascinated with military. He's serving our country right now. He's in his 13th year. Last month we just went down to Camp Lejeune. He just got his dream job. That's what he says he always wanted to do. He's now an artillery officer. He has his own battalion of guns, 16 guns he has under his command. He's a U.S. Marine. So he's doing very well as an officer. And he's hoping to finish his career at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, which the grandkids are a lot closer. They were in California at Camp Pendleton, and when he got a new command, he's over here, so a little easier to travel to see the grandkids. So, my youngest son, we don't think he's going to shear. Again, he had tried it. He's just afraid with his knee. He had a really bad knee accident when he was a senior in high school. And he's just afraid we use our knees and our thigh muscles a lot during the shearing. He's just afraid he's going to hurt it, and he didn't want to go through that process. So I don't think we're going to get him to shear. I did have 2 grandsons that were interested. They're kind of doing new things right now, trying to find themselves, I guess. The oldest one, he's actually in the U.S. Army. He is actually an artillery gunner. He's one of the guys that shoots the rounds. So if they were in the same organization, they probably might be together. But he's in the Army. My son's in the Marine Corps. Anyway, he's one of the 7,500 Army servicemen that got deployed from Broad Bag. So he's over in Ukraine. Well, Germany, Poland, we're not sure. it's kind of hush-hush where they're at. But hopefully we can get all those guys back home safe soon. So that's where he's at. And then my middle grandson, his son, he's been helping around here and there. We didn't get a shear in his hand yet, but he's actually he just finished his first year. He's going to college. He's going into sales right now. So we'll see where it goes in the future. Maybe one of them will come back but we do have two younger grandsons down in Camp Lejeune, but they're only 7 and 5. So we have a long time to see if we can get one of those coaxing into shearing. Anyway, I'm going to have my son start. We always start in the brisket and the belly. And the reason that she sat here while I was talking to you for a few minutes, we took their strength away from them. We need to take their strength away so we can do our job professionally. So that's why she said we have her legs up in the air so she can move there. And then my son will be using his knees and his thigh muscles to control the upper part of the body. So that's how we control an animal so we can do our job. Now we always start in the brisket in the belly. We need to open up the animal. Usually there's not a lot of loose skin here because the bellies are usually full because they do a lot of eating. So again, he is sucking the skin and to make sure we can get as much wool off. Now this is a 4-year-old that we're doing for you. This is a textile polypay cross. It's a cross between two fleece. We give a nice medium weight fleece. This fleece would be used for clothing, but it's a good, nice, medium grade, very nice thick coat that these sheep produce. They're basically used for lambing, for lambs. We can produce these ewes every 8 months. It only takes 5 months for a lamb to be born, and we breed them since they're on the farm. We breed every 8 months. These ewes for lambs. Now you'll notice he's doing a lot of tucking, he's doing a lot of stretching. These animals are very fair skinned. It's very easy to cut them if you don't know what you're doing. So it takes experience to be a professional. It takes about 3 years to be an apprentice. About 3 seasons so you feel comfortable. So we shear about 30 different breeds of sheep. We also shear llamas, alpacas, Angora goats in our trade. Now what we're doing now, we're coming up the neck. We're just going to take a few strokes coming up the neck because we don't know for sure if he has any wrinkles up in there. So it's mostly likely he's done there. Now he's going to put the neck right side against his leg, pull the neck up so that skin's nice and taut. It's a lot easier to come down away from the animal than to come up towards the animal. We can do the stretching a lot more easier. Now this will be the only break in the fleece. This fleece has to come off in one piece and get sold and graded. If it's not, it's considered tag. It's considered tag. We'll use it as the industry. We'll make felt out of tag wool. It's usually the shortest and the dirtiest, so the process is a little different to make felt than it is to make spun wool or back. Now at this point now, I see he's using his palm. You must be seeing some wrinkles. That's why we shear the way we do, because every stroke he takes, the wool will fall away from the animal. So we need to see that, because it's very important to us when you're learning how to shear sheep. You need to see. So he's really sucking that skin. You can see above his head how much wrinkles she has. So he's really showing that. So our job is to get as much wool off this animal. This is only done once a year. So we want to make it worthwhile for the producer to get as much wool off. The other thing too, as professionals, we don't want to cut the animal. I mean, we do nick here and there, it just happens. The way it is, or she moves suddenly when you can see it. We do nick, we do have antiseptics. Just like we put Band-Aids and antiseptics on our cuts and bruises. So every once in a while we will nick. But I think he only has one cut all week, so he's doing a really good job this week shearing. Now my great grandfather developed this method. Most of it's black. He was shearing by hand. He liked the sheep staying in one position. That meant we could have total control of the animal for the entire shearing. So he developed this method. We decided as family members, we all could shear left and right-handed. So we just through our generations, taught the next generation to shear this way, and we all have been doing fine. Most shears, there's a couple different methods. Most shears will shear the entire sheep right-handed, which is called the Australian method. There, the entire sheep will be sheared. You have to turn the sheep. You got to turn the sheep so they can start from the hind quarter and going up through. We're just coming down the opposite way, the way we did on the right side. It still comes off the same way. So we just developed that. We like the sheep in one position. Then we know it's a lot easier to control the animal if the sheep is in one position. Now the one before, she was a little testy on him. She was trying to see what she would get away with. So he had a little more work trying to secure the animal, but he did a fantastic job and he got her job done. Now this is a medium grade fleece, like I said before. It wouldn't be used for clothing. It's not fine enough. Your final wool sheep, they prefer a drier climate. You'll see them more in the western part of the United States. We have few submarinos and Mongolians in this area, but not many. They don't like the humidity. They don't do well in humid climates. So they prefer a little more drier air, and you'll see a lot more of them out there. So what we're going to do, we're going to show you the rest of the sheep by hand. This is just the way my great-grandfather would have finished his sheep. Again, two reasons. The sheep is in a more natural state. We still have control of the animal because the feet are still off the ground. And we can rest our backs in between shearings. A good day for my grandfather, it took him 20-25 minutes to do one by hand. So he could do about 20 a day, comfortably, by hand. So that was a long day. With the equipment we have now and the experience, between the two of us, we can almost do that in an hour's time. We do about 17, 18 an hour between the two of us. So that's how more efficient we are shearing sheep now, this time frame in the 1800s. So all we're doing is doing it by hand. Normally we'll finish the entire sheep by electric, but we're just wanting to show you a little bit of hand shearing and, you know, a little more intense. Now he's kicking, you've just seen that. Again, there's a tension point right there at the hind quarter. He stopped the kick right away. So that comes with experience. And you want to learn, the best way to do it is come under somebody like ourselves with the experience. You'll learn how to shear sheep a lot faster than trying to go through videos, or because videos will just show you just the basics. They're not going to show you the little tricks in the trade of holding a sheep if a sheep kicks, or if you have a wrinkle, what are you supposed to do with that? They don't show you that on videos or textbooks. So, now, like I said, most of our wool here in Pennsylvania, we have basically no big mills in Pennsylvania, even on the East Coast. We do have a mid-sized mill down in South Carolina that some wool pools deal with, but most of us deal with a mill out in Illinois, and they buy a lot of this because they have two companies they process wool for that uses a lot of this type wool. So they come in here probably eight times during the season, starting in May and ending with our pool. Our pool is always in October here, and so they'll come in 7-8 times to the different pool areas in the state of Pennsylvania, get it all trucked in. And two of their major contributors is Burlington. Burlington still uses a lot of wool in their rug making. They use a lot of medium grade fleeces. The other company that uses a lot of medium grade fleeces is Rawlings. If you open this up and unravel the ball, there's 212 yards of spun fiber in every baseball bat. So we play a big part in the core of the baseball. So we are trying different things. The wool industry is like we've bottomed out since COVID. 3 years ago, we could get 80-85 cents a pound for our fleeces. Right now, we're lucky if we get 10 cents. The wool industry, we have bottom out. I've never seen in the 49 years I've been involved in sheep, it was this bad. So, main reason, the world powers, India and China are world leaders in wool buying and production, and they're not buying nothing. They're still, I think half of China's still shut down. There's a new variants developing over there, and a lot of their countries still shut down yet. So hopefully they keep it over there, right? So until they get back in their economy and that, you know, our warehouses are so full. That's why we're getting nothing for our wool, because we still have 2-3 years worth of wool in warehouses. So, but the animals still got to get sheared every year. So we do have an issue trying to get rid of our wool. We are trying new products locally in the United States. We have some guys down in South Carolina. We're trying to get into the greenhole industry. Wool is a very good insulator, and there's guys that are trying to develop wool into bats, and that's what's going in your walls for wall insulation. It's a very good insulator. It doesn't burn. Wool does not burn naturally, and it doesn't attract bugs and insects, so it's a really good product. And so we're trying to get this thing. And there she is. Did I get an issue? Always do it. Always do it. We try not to feed them in the morning so they don't do it, but they must be sneaking some hay through the gates. So anyway, again, this is she was born in 17. She was born in 17, so she has like 5, 6, 8 years on the farm yet to be a producing ewe, and so she'll be around a little bit, and you'll see a yellowish tint to it. I never mentioned it. Is what we call lanolin. This is where it comes from. So once they wash the wool at the mills, the wool will liquefy. They'll skim that, and that goes in your hand creams and soap. Now she's pretty lanolly herself. I'll bring the fleece up if you want to feel it's a little on the lanolin. It'll feel sticky to you. It'll cling to your hands. But this is where the process is when they wash it. That's how they get the lanolin out of the fleece.